Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Meet Me in Napa Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Jackson. I have a very special guest here, Stu Smith. How you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Doing great. Good, good. As you can see, this is probably one of our first episodes at a beautiful location, shot on site here at the Smith-Madrone Winery. And it's breathtaking as you climb up the mountains and you're coming here and you see the landscape and the trees and the forestry and the nature all around you. It's breathtaking. It's breathtaking. As we were coming up here to shoot this, we were just inspired and in awe of what we saw. And so we're just thankful for having us out today.
It's great to have you here. I'm enjoying this too.
You're enjoying it too?
Oh,
Good.
yeah.
I'm glad you're enjoying it. Just thankful that we're here. Thankful that you gave us the opportunity to sit down with you and tell your story. You have an amazing story, and you're one of the, I would say, pioneers of out here in the Valley when it comes to wine. And you've laid a great foundation, and we're going to get into your story. But before we do that, tell us the wine you have here.
So we have two wines right in front of us. The one on my right in the tall slope bottle is the 2019 Riesling. It's a dry style Riesling. It's something that we're extremely well known for, and it's one of my favorite wines.
Okay. And what's the other one here?
And the other one is on the left side, and that's the 2021 Cabernet Sauvignon. By the way, everything we make, we grow here. We don't buy grapes anywhere else. If it's not grown here, we don't make it.
Okay.
And the Cabernet is got a little bit of Cabernet Franc in it, a little bit of Petit Verdot in it too. Where the Riesling is 100% varietal. In other words, there's no blending with it.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna get a little glass here and pour us a little bit.
Yes. Thank you much.
Yes, sir. And cheers to you.
And cheers.
Yes, cheers.
And my wife told me, you know why we clink glasses? Because it's the only sense that we don't experience when we're drinking wine. And that is that you get taste, sight, and smell, but you don't get noise. You don't get that noise, which is why we clink glasses. And now we have a complete sensory issue with wine.
Wow, man. I was today years old when I learned that. Which I'm excited to because today is my birthday.
And happy birthday.
Thank you very much. So there's not a better way I could have spent my birthday other than talking to you and viewing this beautiful landscape. And so anyway, Stu, so tell us a little about your journey. Tell us about, who you are. Where did you start? Where are you from?
I grew up in Santa Monica.
Okay.
And I was my best friend and I in the summertime, we would take the bus down to what's called Ocean Avenue. We'd get off the bus, then we'd go down the cliff, cross over the PCH, which is Pacific Coast Highway, go to the beach. Mm-hmm. And what we would do is that we would collect Coke bottles, and there was a place behind us called Sorrento's. And they'd give us 2 cents for every bottle that we brought back.
Okay.
So we'd collect Coke bottles. We'd get enough money for bus fare home, bus fare back the next day. And we spent 5 days a week and on the beach in Santa Monica. And we both went through the junior lifeguard program for a couple of years. When I was got out of high school at Santa Monica High, also known as Samo High, I was able to take the competitive test to be a Santa Monica lifeguard.
Okay.
And turned out I was the youngest lifeguard ever at Santa Monica.
Did you have to save anybody?
Oh yeah.
You did? Okay.
But when I say that, I got to qualify. It's not as though you see something in the movie where somebody's drowning, their arms are flailing everywhere, and the lifeguard comes up, and in the very last second before this person goes down, you grab them and yank them, back up. What you're really doing is you're going out and you're giving them comfort. You're giving them assurance that we can get you back into shore. Mm-hmm. If it's a big day and there's an issue, we would, and anytime anything happens, you just knock your phone off the hook and that alerts towers on either side of you.
Yeah.
Or you can call in the boat. And so a lot of cases, the biggest day I ever had is I had 16 rescues.
Oh man.
And they shut down the beach because the surf was so big. But most of that we took out past the waves.
Okay.
And then we get people into the boat.
Mm-hmm.
We'd get them rested and kind of calmed down.
Was Pamela Anderson out there?
No, she wasn't. No, we were no.
There was no Pamela Anderson.
There was no Pamela Anderson
Okay, all right,
anywhere.
All right, well, okay. So you were 16, you graduated. You were
Yeah. So anyway, I got to know the family behind where I guarded.
Uh-huh.
And I was going off to college, and they said, "Well, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm going off to school," and so I was there for 4 years, both at Santa Monica, and I went to Berkeley. And as somebody says, if you can remember going to Berkeley, you really weren't there. But anyway, I graduated. My last summer there, people asked me what I was going to do. I said, well, I'm going off to UC Davis, and I've gotten into the master's program in viticulture and enology. Viticulture is the grape growing, and enology is after the goddess Ino, so that's wine.
And just real quick, so when you were in your undergrad, you knew you wanted to journey into wine then?
I started to learn it when I was there.
Okay. So where did that spark for your passion to learn about wine? Where did that originally start?
Well, it was basically going to college, and I played football and rugby at Cal, and I realized I like wine better than I like beer,
Mm-hmm.
which is weird,
Mm-hmm.
Especially for those
Sure,
times.
those times of the younger person too. Yeah.
And then to help myself go through Cal, I worked in a liquor store out in Moraga. It was called Moraga Liquors, and that kind of got me a little bit going into wine. And just one thing led to another. And then as a senior, I became what was called an intercampus exchange student. As a rising senior, I was able to apply for taking the introductory class in viticulture and enology at UC Davis. They let me in, and I don't know if they have that program today, but then if you were close enough from one campus to the other, you could, and they let you in, you could take class at, so I was enrolled at Cal, but I was able to take this class at UC Davis.
Okay.
And so that really got me going on it, and one thing led to another. I happened to be at the right place at the right time, and a friend I met at Cal, his family owned the property, and this was 1970. I first walked it in the fall of 1970, and there had been a small vineyard here. There's a row of olive trees that date back to 1884, and you got to understand that Napa Valley was a very different place than today. Mm-hmm. The agriculture was the dominant economic engine here, and it was cattle. Mm. And cattle, even back then, wasn't exactly, a high profit business.
Right.
And so the wine industry was just starting to come in. And as a senior at Cal, I did a paper on the wine industry for one of my economic classes. And I came up here and I got to know some people and what have you. And I thought, okay. And that's also why I ended up at UC Davis, is that I didn't have any money, so I couldn't buy my way into the business. Mm-hmm. And so I figured I had to work my way up through the educational system to get to where I could do something. And that's how it started.
Okay. So a question, you were saying there was cattle was the biggest moneymaker in the valley at that time, right?
Right.
This is the 60s, 70s?
This would have been late 60s.
Okay,
late
60s. So how did what turned that wine started to dominate the industry?
Well, there were young people like myself who were liking wine and were visiting the wineries and seeing an alternative, but also people were starting to realize that the wine industry had a potential in the Napa Valley. Up until that time, Prohibition was, I believe it was 1919. Repeal was 1933. Mm-hmm. And so between 33 and let's just say 1970, whatever that is, 33, 43. So what's that, 17 years or something like that. The industry was learning to make wine again.
Right.
It was a reincarnation of the wine business. Because most of the wineries, because of Prohibition, went out of productions, and the few that remained did it because they were able to sell wine to the Catholic Church, because the Catholic Church said, we're good, we need wine. And so that kind of worked there. And then I came in the late 1960s, and Napa Valley was still a small agricultural dominated community. But it was just starting to take off, and people were getting interested in wine. I think throughout the United States also. It wasn't just Napa Valley. It was everywhere. Now, and so I was at the right place at the right time. There was a door. I went through the door. I was very tenacious, and I put together a partnership of anybody who would give a 22-year-old kid money to start a business.
Yeah,
and that's how I got going.
So,
and it was pins and needles and fingers on the chalkboard.
Yeah.
But we survived by hook or by crook, and then my brother joined me in 74, and we started building the winery 74, 75.
Okay. And that was outside of. So when you graduated UC Davis, you didn't move to the Valley. You moved to Napa. Okay.
Well, actually, I'd moved to the Valley before.
Okay. While you were going to school.
While I was going to school at Davis.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like in those early years, were you working while you were in school? Were you working like right as soon as you got out of school? Were you directly dealing with wine? Did you have other odd jobs?
Well, I taught viticulture and enology at Santa Rosa Junior College for 10 years.
Okay.
And so that helped pay some of the bills.
Okay.
And yeah, I worked 7 days a week. From not quite from sunrise to sundown, but it was a lot of work.
Yeah.
And money was always tough to come by.
Yeah.
But we were at the right place at the right time.
Right. So, what landed you to? You were teaching at the college, and then how did you land on the property here at Smith-Madrone?
So this was owned by a friend that I had in at college, and they were trying to sell it, and nobody wanted to buy it. So I'd taken a little bit of money, and I got them to accept. Let's see, what was it called? It was called an option to buy.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't buy it then.
Yeah.
But I could buy an option to buy it.
Okay.
And so I did that. And then that was, and so they were happy because they had some idiot who was trying to figure out how to raise the money to buy their property. And to put it into perspective, it was $350 an acre they were asking.
What would be the price for an acre today?
Well, this was forested land.
Okay.
This was watershed land. This was not vineyard land.
Okay.
But vineyard land today, I don't know, is $100,000-$200,000 an acre.
Wow.
Something like that.
Inflation. It's crazy.
But this was just watershed. So we had to log the property. We had to get the stumps pushed out of the ground. We had to pick up the rocks. We had to pick up all the roots. We had to pick up anything that was left over from the logging, because we didn't do the logging ourselves. Mm-hmm. But we had it logged, and that gave us a little bit of money.
Tell just for the viewers, when you say logging, what does that mean exactly?
Well, there was the history of the property goes back to 1884 when a guy named George Cook got title to it through a what do you call it? A Homestead Act.
Okay.
And it was all forested. Now there were in the olive trees in some places in the forest, you could see a Douglas fir tree that was 2 feet in diameter, 18 inches, 2 feet in diameter, and pooched out at a 35-degree angle was a little redwood grapestake. Mm-hmm. And that had been a vine. And they'd planted that vineyard in the early 1880s. And then at the end of the 19th century, phylloxera, which is a root louse that is indigenous to the eastern seaboard, was brought to, of all things, it was brought to California from Europe because the English came here and found all the different grape species that live in America, and they took them back to Europe, and they had phylloxera on them.
Okay.
And it's a little root louse, and the British are blamed for bringing it. It was introduced into the Rhone Valley. It went up through the Rhone Valley, decimated the European wine industry.
Oh, wow.
And so they had to come back to America and figure out what it was, how to deal with it, and then they gave it to California, Northern California, and the vineyards were abandoned at the turn of the 20th century. And so when I got here in 1970, most of the trees were medium size, 18 inches, 24 inches at most in diameter. And so we had to log those trees, which means you cut down the trees, you buck them into lengths, you load them onto a logging truck, and then they haul them off to a lumber mill, and then they get milled up into lumber, and people build houses or whatever it is that they want to do with it. So that was a little bit of income coming in for us too. But it was a big job going from a forest to planting a vineyard.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, I know they'll be able to see pictures of the property as we're talking, but if you could just see how massive it is. So it must have been a very, very big, like in my head, I'm thinking when you first see it, I'm seeing it all logged now and all tidied and finished now, but I can imagine walking up here and nothing was touched. Just even the mental capacity to say, hey, this is what I'm going to do. Like, why they couldn't sell it, right? So what made you just say, you just felt like, hey, this is my opportunity, I'll just do it? Or what was...
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah.
You get blinders on.
Yeah.
And you just got one focus that you're looking at. And, not to be flippant, but sometimes ignorance is bliss.
It's true.
Because if you don't really know how much trouble you're going to get into trying to do it, you might not ever do it.
That's why being young is so good.
Exactly.
You don't take as many chances when you get older.
Well, let me just tell you.
If you'd have walked up here as a 60-year-old man, you'd be like, oh, no, we're going to...
No way. So, I was at the right place at the right time, and I went through a door, and I am, now at my age, I'm always, my wife is always saying to me, stand up, you're crunched over. I'm going, it's those goddamn rocks I picked up. I mean, my brother and I picked up more rocks. We were going to build the winery out of rocks.
Oh, wow.
It was going to be a stone building. Like what all the other ones were like, it built in the Napa Valley. And when we were done picking up rocks, we both said, we're done with rocks.
Yeah.
So we built the winery out of concrete blocks.
Oh, man, that's an amazing story. So there you are. You have this land, you get it, and you begin to till the land, work the land to make it into a winery.
Yes.
What was the next step after you were done clearing out everything and now you're ready to plant? What was the first grapevine that you planted here?
This is maybe a little tedious, but
it's okay.
I was still at UC Davis, and because I was at UC Davis, they had just come out with what are called heat-treated certified grapevines.
Okay.
So if everybody can remember pictures of Napa Valley from 50, 60 years ago, in the fall, the vineyards all turn red. They're beautiful. The leaves turn red. And that's an indication of what we call leaf roll virus. And when those leaves turn red, they're no good anymore. They don't photosynthesize. And they're great for pictures, but they're terrible for growing wine grapes. And so UC Davis had been at a long time been working on developing virus-free grapevines. And we were able to get some of those very first vines coming out of UC Davis. And but they were so young and so new that they weren't on rootstocks. Rootstock is the bottom part of the plant, which would be resistant to phylloxera. And so what we got were, like anybody going down to a Home Depot, you're buying a tomato plant. It comes in a 4-inch plastic pot, and it's sticking up maybe 6 inches, 8 inches at the very most. and that's what our vines were. They were on their own roots. I took the risk that they were on their own roots and that we didn't have phylloxera any longer, because phylloxera can only grow on grapevines. And so, and because I was here and walked the forest, and by the way, got an amazing amount of poison oak, I realized that there were no grapevines here.
Okay.
And I took the risk that there were no grapevines, there's no phylloxera, and therefore we'll plant them on their own roots. And that was pretty ballsy at the time. And I thought, well, if I can get 15 years out of them, that'll be cool. And then we will replant to whatever we find out is the best way, what plants do the best here. But we really got until the turn of the 20th century before we got phylloxera. And we had to then start replanting the vineyard. And in some ways, that's both horrible, because you spend your, so from 70 to 2000, 30 years tending your vineyard and taking care of it just to see it die underneath you. But on the other hand, it gives you an opportunity, because in those 30 years, you learn a hell of a lot.
Right.
And spacing.
So you got to restart with with all that,
with 30 years of experience
knowledge.
behind me.
Right.
And so, so it's not just theoretical, it's practical. And so we started looking at row direction. In other words, do the rows go north, south, east, west? Do they go northeast, southwest? What are our spacings? We'd done a number of trials with spacing. So our largest spacing was 12 feet between rows and 7 feet between vines. And our narrowest block was what we call Cook's Flat Cabernet. It was 8 feet between rows and 4 feet between vines. Actually, I take that back. It was 5 feet. So it was 8 by 5, so 40 square feet. And then our trellis, how high our trellis systems should go, how tall the stakes could be. When we started in the Napa Valley, the spacing in the Napa Valley was 12 by 8. That's 96 square feet. I think it was 453 vines to the acre, and they used a 6-foot stake. We went to a different spacing because we're on the mountains, and on the slope, your tractor slides a little bit. And then the other one is that, where am I going here? The height of the stake. We wanted to go higher. So we went in with 6-foot stakes, which is what the traditional Napa Valley stake height was at the time. And we went to a 7-foot stake. Today we use an 8-foot metal stake because the wood rots out.
Okay.
And we're tired of pulling out rotted stakes.
Yeah.
So that, it's that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And it sounds meticulous, but for people that understand, or just understanding that process, is what helped you to probably create a better product, if I would imagine.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes. There's nothing better than making your own mistakes, because when you make your own mistakes, you learn not to do any other mistakes. And so that was really helpful. And while the vineyard, the replanting was both expensive and time consuming, it also allowed us to make better grapes, to grow better grapes, and the better grapes that we grew then allowed us to make better wine.
Wow. So I remember we talked when we came up here to meet you for the first time. You talked about the mountain wars between the grape growers, the grape growers in the mountains and the grape growers in the valley. Well, explain a little bit of that to me. I mean, just
Sure.
Put it in layman terms, so
Right. Okay. So here I was, a 23-year-old. And we had to get permits to log the property, and to do that you have to get what's called an RPF, which is a registered professional forester, and then he is in charge of finding someone who will actually do the logging, because we didn't do the logging.
Right.
We did the cleanup.
Oh, okay.
And the loggers are called LTOs, licensed timber operators. And I had to go over and get the permit from Department of Forestry, California Department of Forestry in Santa Rosa. So I'm over there as this 23-year-old kid, And this grizzled, forester is looking at me, and he goes, "Kid, you think you know what you're doing, but you don't."
But you don't, yeah.
And he says, and I'm going, "Where is this going?" And he goes, "As soon as you pull out your first chainsaws, they're just that people are going to come out of the woodwork and they're going to attack you." And I go, "No, sir. I'm a newly minted UC Davis grad student. I'm doing, this is a good project for my county, Napa County. This is a good project for the wine industry." And I said, "This is a good project for the forest."
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, and I go, "Yeah, we're going to be putting in roads. We're going to be clearing land for the vineyard." And frankly, I said even then, because Charlie and I grew up in Southern California, where fire was a way of life.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Look, it's not a question of if we're going to have a fire where we are. It's only a question of when are we going to have that fire."
Mm.
And you guys, okay, there you go. Well, in some ways, he was dead right and I was dead wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I walked into a buzzsaw, literally, when we were doing the clearing here.
Mm-hmm.
And the county passed a moratorium on logging. And some guy comes up and says, "Hey, I'm from the county and I got a thing in the moratorium and you can't do logging anymore." And I said, as nicely as I could under the circumstances, "Excuse me, but I got a permit from the state of California here."
Mm-hmm.
And my and that's what I'm working from. And thanks very much. See you. Goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went in to get my permit from the county 2 years later to build the winery, they hadn't forgotten. And
They're like an elephant.
they were like an elephant, and they took their pound of flesh out of me.
Okay.
But I got my permit,
Okay.
and we started the winery, and those are the kind of things that that's what I remember.
So you were when I was saying with the valley, what's the difference between
The Highlanders and
growing?
Lowlanders.
Yeah, the mountain
Yeah.
growing and the valley
Right.
growing. Yeah.
Okay, so when I started this, I had in my brain that there were two things about the winemaking that were sacrosanct. One of them is that it's kind of like a fresh fish.
Mm-hmm.
If you go out and you capture or hook, pull in fresh fish, there's nothing better than pulling over to the side of the lake, to the side of the river, and starting a fire and cooking that fish.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is as fresh as it can be. That's as good as it'll ever be.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to getting 4-day-old fish and trying to make something that really ain't ever going to work too well.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing is with the wine industry in some ways, and that is that you can only make the best wine from the very best grown grapes. And I believe, as Virgil said in 43 BC, Bacchus amat colis. Bacchus loves the hills. And the reason for that is that to make great wine, the grapes have to struggle. You can't make it easy for them.
Mm.
And when the grapes vines themselves struggle, that means that they put a lot of energy into ripening those grapes. Mm. And you're gonna get a better quality wine, darker color in the wine, especially with reds, and that you're going to get a more tasteful product. So let's pick on tomatoes again. So if you plant a tomato in your garden, in your backyard, or whatever, even in a flower, a pot, if you water it and fertilize the hell out of it, the tomato plant is going to grow fast. It's going to grow up. It's going to have a lot of tomatoes. The tomatoes are going to be beautiful red tomatoes, and you go harvest those things. You take them into the house, you slice them open, you throw it on the hamburger by themselves, and you go, there's no flavor. It's all water.
Mm-hmm.
But if you dig a big hole and you plant the tomato deep and you water it sparingly and you give it little or no fertilization, the plant will grow, and it will do its very best to ripen those tomatoes. So when those tomatoes are ripe and you pick them up, they're probably not very pretty looking, but you take them into the kitchen, you cut them up, and you're going, wow, it's got so much flavor. Mm. And that's the same concept with wine grapes. If you grow wine grapes down on the deep, fertile soils, they're just going to grow like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But are the flavors going to be there?
Mm.
Because they're not having to work very hard because the soil is so good.
Mm-hmm.
But being on the mountain, they got to struggle.
Mm.
And we got to struggle with them. And
So you're saying those guys down there backs aren't hurting like yours?
yes. And what you get is a wine that comes from those grapes, that comes from that labor, that comes from that passion, that allows you to make a wine that is flavorful and provides an enhanced valuation to the product.
Wow. I as you were talking, I just had all these analogies of just people of life, refer back to life. Just if things are easy for you, if things come easy, you don't appreciate it, you don't work at the quality of it's not going to be, it's in the work, it's in the discipline, it's in the grind, it's in the hardship that the best things are made, like diamonds, correct?
Yes, yes, and yes.
Yeah.
If it comes too easy, you don't appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you make life so easy for your grapevines, the berries themselves will reflect the easiness by which they got mature.
Mm.
And so it's that struggle. And that's what Virgil was trying to say in this Bacchus amat colis, Bacchus loves the hills. First of all, there's very few agricultural products that can be grown in the hills.
Mm.
And wine grapes are one of them. And one of the big things that I believe in and I've been pushing for 25 plus years, and that is that we should not be watering our vineyards as much as we do in California. Mm. We need to cut back on the water, both because it's the environmental thing to do. California doesn't have enough water, and the wine grapes are something that can use as little as water as anything else. And in some of our blocks, not all of the blocks, we do what we call dry farming, and they only get what nature gives them. Mm. And we have some blocks that have not been watered by us anyway. Well, let me tell you a story. In 1976, we planted a block of Cabernet, and we call it the slide field. And when we planted it, we gave each plant 5 gallons of water. And this past summer, 2024, we pulled that vineyard out. So 76 to 24. That was the only water that those vines ever got, was that 5 gallons and that first day of planting.
Wow.
And that block, which was facing north, which is generally considered not a good exposure for wine grapes in the Napa Valley, gave us some of the best grapes to be made into wine. Mm. Now, Phylloxera finally got it because it was one of the original blocks that we planted on its own roots.
Okay.
And so, we knew it was going to happen. And for probably 5 years, I'm saying to Charlie, we got to pull out the, this coming year, we got to pull out the slide field Cabernet. And we'd go to it and we go, well, it's really still giving us some grapes. Mm-hmm. So we kept postponing it and finally in 24 they came out.
That's a good story. So as I'm thinking, as you're talking, I can't help but think about how you, I'm speaking to someone, you're an elder statesman, politely put. What do you see from your history of knowing wine, from your beginning journey to what is happening in Napa Valley today? What are some things that you feel are promising, and what are some things that you think may be going in the wrong direction?
I didn't answer your question about highlanders or lowlanders. Can I take that?
Yeah, we can go back to that one. Yeah.
Let's do that, and then I'll come back.
Okay.
I didn't know it at the time, but there seems to be a clash between people in the valley floor wanting to stop us from planting new vineyards in the mountains. Mm-hmm. And I think it is one of trying to stop and I'll make the bold statement that I believe that grapes grown in the mountains, as I've said to you earlier, are better than the grapes grown in the valley floor. Now that doesn't mean that there aren't bad wines made from mountain vineyards and there aren't good wines that are made from valley floor vineyards.
Right.
But all things being equal, best grapes come from the mountains. Ergo, the best wines come from the mountain, of course. And what's happened is that the boys and girls down in the valley floor are tired of us making good wine, and they want us. They basically want us to stop expanding vineyards in the mountains. Encompassed in that whole thing is an environmental movement by people who don't want the mountains used for profit. And so there's that clash. And then you have the other issue, which is that some of the people who've been on the mountains for a while, not as long as I, but for a while, they're happy to see regulations that stop new vineyards from going into the mountains, because that makes their vineyards more valuable. And my attitude is, I don't buy that kind of protectionism. We're in a laissez-faire economy, and I believe, and I have been a huge proponent of championing hillside growers. And I believe that and there's only, so Napa County is just over 500,000 acres. And there's 45,000 acres of grapes in the Napa Valley. And there are very few places where in the mountains you have the right soil. In other words, free of rock. You have the right exposure, and all of these other things. So finding little areas where we can plant vineyards in the mountains, we should be able to do that. We should be allowed to do that. But it's getting to be harder and harder and harder. And to some of your listeners, let me just say that I have friends who have been trying to get a permit to plant some vineyards in the mountains. It's taken them 10 years, and they couldn't ever get a permit. 10 years plus $2 million in an environmental impact report. And this is the kind of stuff that we're up against.
So it's basically eating up in bureaucracy.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, with a great big capital yes.
Oh, yes. Okay. So back. So what I was saying earlier was the question of, is that part of the answer to the statement of what you see happening moving forward that's good and bad? Like, what do you, like the industry as a whole, like the industry as you saw it when you first came in, when it started to hit its heyday, to what you see today? Like, what are some positive, negative takes that you take away from that?
So when I got out of UC Davis, there were a couple, three or four things that allowed us, the industry, to move forward well. One of them was we had a board of supervisors from the Napa County that was supportive of wineries and vineyards. We had UC Davis cranking out little boys and girls as winemakers and grape growers. So that's important, to have a supply of educated people to be able to grow grapes and make wine. The other one is that we had neighbors. And neighbors were supportive of us because cattle wasn't paying the bills. But they could see that the wine industry could maybe someday pay the bills and be profitable for the valley. And so that was then. And today we still have boys and girls coming out of now not just UC Davis and Fresno State, San Luis Obispo, and we've got programs at Santa Rosa JC. Napa College has a program going for it. Washington State has a viticulture program, an enology program. And so boys and girls are coming out pretty good. We have then, a board of supervisors, which is no longer our friend and no longer supportive of us. And in fact, in some ways, they're our enemy, because they keep putting restrictions on us in Napa County that no other grape growing county in America has. As an example, in Napa County, we are not allowed to host weddings at the winery. Period. I mean, if we do that, we get into big trouble. Sonoma County, Lake County, Mendocino County, Suisun County, Livermore County, all the way through the Central Coast and down into Southern California. All of those wineries, they can host weddings, not Napa County. And that's just one small thing where we are trying to compete with one arm tied behind our back. And so those.
Where do you think? I'm sorry to cut you off, but where do you think that regulation comes from? Why? What is the purpose, and who? Is there somebody benefiting from that, or do you think it's just a power play, or what do you feel is the motivating factor behind that?
We keep asking ourselves, why would our county try to harm us when we are the goose that laid the golden egg? And yet that's what they're doing. They're asking us not to. I mean, we have to compete in the world. Little Smith-Madrone sells wine to the rest of the United States. We sell wine into, we used to sell wine into Canada. That's gone. But we sell wine to the UK. We sell wine to Japan. We sell wine to Germany, to Czechoslovakia. We're just a little winery, but we have to have an international market. And Napa County doesn't understand that. And Napa County is basically hamstringing us from being able to compete with everybody else. So recently, my wife started calling around the various places to see what their regulations were in other wine growing areas. She called Texas and asked the people, the ag people in Texas, about these rules and regulations. What are your rules and regulations? And they laughed at her and go, "We've got no rules and regulations. You just do what you want." Well, that's a whole lot different than in Napa County. And those are things that we have to compete against. The marketplace is an important one, and we have to compete not only within California, but in the United States, but also internationally.
Okay. So that's the it's just, and thank you for that. Just that people are able to hear that and see that. So that's more like the political side.
Yeah.
But what is the industry? Have you seen? Because now there's this big thing about young people are, I don't want to say young people, but people aren't buying wine as much.
Right.
It hasn't become more commercialized, and what have you seen that is even on the sense of the consumer response to wine, and even how wine is marketed and shown to the people today? What is your thought about that?
From a Napa Valley point of view, because I'm not aware enough on the international basis when it comes to this lower consumption. But on a Napa Valley basis, I think one of the problems that Napa Valley is not dealing with, and that is that the pricing for a lot of wines from Napa Valley is way ahead of the quality of the wine that's in the bottle. And it used to be, when we started, that the quality of the wine in the bottle was way ahead of the cost of that bottle. And that's now flipped. And it may be just my view of it. I don't know how truthful this is for everybody else, but my view of it is that we're charging too much money for the wines. And part of that reason is that we have such high overhead because of the regulations within Napa County. But for people to come to the valley and stay in a hotel and eat out at a dinner or lunches and visit wineries can be enormously expensive. And I don't know how to deal with that because there's so many factors out there that go into this issue that we sometimes hear that Sonoma County has an issue too, but they have more visitors than we do, but they're twice our size. You look down into the Central Coast, and there seems to be a freshness in the Central Coast, so people are going there. And the cost of going and spending a weekend or a week in the Central Coast is a hell of a lot cheaper than spending a week in Napa Valley. And these are the issues that as small wineries, as small winemakers, all we're trying to do is to make a product and sell it. But here we're having to look at the policies and the politics of California and of the United States, and really in some ways of the world. And that's discouraging, because all we really want to do is make great wine and have make a living.
Yeah. I can't remember what you said last time when we spoke. You were saying something that is you were just basically saying it's just a grape, and if you grow it and you grow it well, it'll sell. I can't remember what you were referring to. I don't know if it was like the pomp maybe around it.
Let me try.
I can't remember. I'm trying to grasp the original conversation, but
I think maybe what we were getting at is that if we do our job as a grape grower and as a winemaker, and we make a wine which is good and it's at a fair price, that's about all we can really ask for. That's really the goal. And hopefully you will create a band of people who like your wines and will buy your wines, and that keeps you in business. And now what we're looking at is a group of people who are coming into the valley who have a huge amount of money, and for them it's a game. They sold their, as I like to say, they sold their widget company in the Silicon Valley for $1 bazillion, and then they go, well, what are we going to do now? And they go, oh, let's have a little winery in the Napa Valley. Oh, that sounds so great. So then they start this thing out, and they have to hire a chef, they have to hire a vineyard manager, the winemaker, a marketing person, a PR person. And 8, 9, 10 years into this project, they're going, honey, this isn't what we wanted to retire in. This is a lot of work. And one of the things that these people will bring up is, to the wine industry, to all these people that they're hiring, which is not a bad thing, is, well, they ask, well, what's the ROI? And the wine industry people are going, what's an ROI? and you have to say, it's something called return on investment. It doesn't exist. And so that's another kind of stirring the pot, of all the things that we have to deal with. We have celebrities who come in and want to be winemakers. Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie are still litigating their separation on a winery, and there's a fair amount of glamour. There's a fair amount of many famous people involved, but the bottom line is, you shouldn't be in the wine business if you don't like people. The wine business isn't producing widgets; it's producing wine for people. And it's a people business. And if you don't like people, you shouldn't be in the wine business. And one of the great things about wine is being able to sit down with family, friends, whomever, either at a lunch or a dinner, and have wine, have a conversation, and the day's ills kind of fall off your back a little easier than without that glass of wine, without those friends, to see the end of a day through.
Yeah. I can say for myself, living out here for several years now, it's easy to get caught up in the pomp of it all, and get caught up in just all the excitement that's around it, and the parties and everything, which is great. I still want to continue to do those things, but to sit down and have a conversation with someone like you, and to see your property and to see the work that goes into it, then to just but then also have to fight just to sell it, right? Have to fight just to do more. Like, this is bigger than the parties. This is bigger. Your family, you raised a family off of this living. You made a life for yourself off of this. You provide for, people come work the land. You provide jobs. You provide all these things. So to have to hear the story of having to fight so hard just to keep it going, to keep it afloat, it's really humbled me, and it's made me give me a level of respect, renewed respect, that I would say honestly I didn't have prior to just our brief few conversations, and even just today. So I would ask you this, kind of in closing, what would you want to say to just the wine industry as a whole, whether it be the policymakers, the consumers, the other winemakers? Like, as an elder statesman, what would you want to leave to these people to think about or to move forward to look in the future?
I think there has to be a respect for what we, the wine industry, is doing for the community. And one of the things I've said, and this may answer your question, and that is, or your proposition, and that is that in some ways I feel the people in the valley who don't appreciate the wine industry, they want the fruits of our labor, but they don't want to see us do the work. And the fruits of our labor is a green Napa Valley. And all of the vines that are up and down the valley, that are on the hillsides, both on the western side of the valley and the eastern side of the valley. And they don't want to see us do the work. And that work is to sell the wine to people. Because you can't make a living if you can't sell what it is that you're making. And we need to be able to market our wine to people who visit us, people who've never heard of us, but somebody says you need to go visit Smith-Madrone, or you need to go here. And there's a group of people who don't want us to have visitors, who don't want us to survive, who don't want us to flourish. And what they don't understand is that if an industry doesn't flourish, it will eventually start to devolve down, to spiral into the ground. And once an industry starts spiraling into the ground, you can't stop it. You know, look at San Francisco. San Francisco at one time was the Wall Street of the Western United States. It was a big shipping port. Now San Francisco doesn't even exist as a port. Montgomery Street in San Francisco was, like I say, the Wall Street. Montgomery Street doesn't exist any longer. Bank of America, which was founded here, they're not owned by somebody from San Francisco. They got bought, you know. And so when an industry starts going down, there's nothing you can do about it. And one of the problems we have with Napa County is we have a board of supervisors. Almost every governmental agency in America has some type of economic development organization to help the people, to help that government keep their industry, whatever that industry is, within that government sphere, successful. And if it's not doing successfully, not being very successful, they need to figure out what's wrong with it and try to help it, because government runs on money. And where does money come from? It comes from the people, and it comes from people doing business within that environment, that government environmental sphere of influence. And Napa County does not have an economic department. And so, you know, we say to the county, why do you keep regulating us to death, and yet you do nothing to help us? So they basically have become our enemy. And that's a hell of a thing to say. That's wrong. And I have lots of friends who are deep in their foxholes, and they support Napa County liberalizing their rules and their regulations, but they won't come out of their foxhole because they're afraid that Napa County will find something that they're doing wrong and cause them harm. So it's very unfortunate.
Wow. Well, that was amazing. I thank you so much.
Thank you for listening.
No, I'm thank you so much. That was an amazing Smith-Madrone Winery. You guys are amazing. Please come visit if you guys are in the valley, and support your local businesses. You are a local businessman.
We are.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As are you.
I am. Yes. Tell them where they should meet you at. Meet me in Napa, right?
Yes, in Napa.
All right. Thank you, guys. We'll catch you on another episode. See you soon.